Hello, this is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's bottom 250 so you don't have to.
I'm Abigail Wood.
And I'm Michelle St. Clair.
And tonight we are watching Meet the Blacks, as Carl Black gets the opportunity to move his family out of Chicago in hope of a better life. Their arrival in Beverly Hills is timed with that city's annual Purge, where all crime is legal for 12 hours. Let's watch.
Cool. Let me say up front as the first thing, I hate white Snoop Dogg.
Can I say up front as the first thing?
Okay.
Art is dead. I have no belief in anything anymore. I don't know why we're trying to get a fucking foot in the door of this terrible industry. It rewards all the wrong things.
I remember last week we said, oh, well, this one feels like it should be lower on the list. And now I realize this one's worse.
It's so much worse.
They're ordered actually pretty well so far.
So we're 2 movies deep, but I have complete faith in the list.
I think I underestimated the flaw of movies. Having watched a lot of bad movies, I thought I perfectly understood bad movies.
I need to wrap my head around the fact that obviously, as we go on, each movie will be worse and worse, and we have to be emotionally prepared for that, because I don't think I was tonight.
I wasn't.
Like, Nothing to Lose was obviously bad.
Yeah.
This was just a different tier. This was a different building.
I didn't know anything about this movie going in, and I wish someone had warned me. I wish I
know I wasn't prepared. So this film is at 4.8 on IMDb's list.
Which... way too high.
Ranking 249. Way too high. I don't know. We don't know what's coming for us, so I'm hesitant to say that.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a comedy with heavy quotations around that word film, and it's a take on the 2013 film The Purge.
Yeah, which again, I didn't know going in.
Yeah, so that is actually a distinctive thing. So right before we recorded this, I went to the bathroom to have a little pee, and I looked up the Purge synopsis because I've never seen it, and I want to know how directly it does follow the Purge storyline.
Yeah.
It does a couple things well it's a satire of the Purge. It does follow a lot of the plot of The Purge. There is characters and storylines that completely echo it. But as someone that's never seen The Purge, we just watched a horrific massacre of a film with no context around it, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, the first one is like a home invasion slasher, right? And so it's funny that the only massacre that you mentioned was the cinematic quality. Yeah, like I went in, like I've seen the original Purge, and I was like, that's enough for me. And I didn't know
that... But you have seen the original Purge?
Yeah.
What was it like?
Very mediocre. I would rate that one a 4.5.
Right.
It's
4.8.
4.8. It's very much, it's like Ethan Hawke is there because someone gave him a bit of money. It's not there for any other reason.
Yeah. Well, the thing about this film is that, like, I recognized Mike Epps as the lead and nobody else.
Yeah.
Nobody else. I'll get into the plot of it so that we have context for what this film is about. So, Carl Black lived in Chicago, and in a very quick cartoon-esque sequence, or comic book-esque sequence, we understand his complete backstory in that he's involved in a bunch of drug dealers in Chicago, and there's this one guy that he stole a bunch of money off of, and then this is my understanding. I read the plot synopsis, and I still didn't fully understand the story.
So was that detailed in the intro thing?
I don't know.
Because just when it began with the weird comic book intro, which was very unexpected and not very Purge-esque, I was like, I don't know if it's necessarily bad, but the speaking style in it, I couldn't keep track of what they were saying because it was very like quiet compared to the other sound that was going on. Like it was a very busy and noisy.
The sound design of the film, I have a whole note on as well. We'll leave that for later.
But as the intro went on, I could comprehend less and less and less of what was happening.
As the film went on, I could comprehend less and less and less of what was happening. That was a running theme in this film. You're not meant to understand it. It's an experience. So he has these bad affiliations in Chicago. He steals a bunch of money from a crime boss whose name I've already forgotten, but played by Charlie Murphy, who died not long after the film. And then he runs off to Beverly Hills. So the film really opens with him driving into his new mansion in his gated community in Beverly Hills, where a security guard is like, hey, man, no black people live here, right? So this is like the first little inkling that, oh, there's a racial meaning in this film. Like, he's got a statement to make about race in America, which is probably the only positive in the entire film. But he gets into his mansion with his hot Latino wife, and
I wrote down, by the way, mediocre looking comedian with a hot wife is a plot hole. Omar Epps married to that woman is a plot hole in the movie. There's
Mike Epps.
Mike Epps?
Not Omar Epps. Omar Epps is the dude from House.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mike Epps.
Mike Epps married to that woman is a plot hole.
100%.
It's not fathomable or believable in the story.
Especially because, like, the whole story is that he's just suddenly come into a lot of money and has gotten them a mansion in Beverly Hills, which is also a nuts idea. Like, I don't know anyone that's just gotten a bunch of cash they've stolen from someone, and we've seen the amount that he's stolen, and they buy a mansion in Beverly Hills. Like, well, baby steps, man. That's a huge leap to take. But either way, we find out that he didn't have money before that point. So what was she doing with him prior to this move? I don't understand how they met. I don't understand how they fell in love. I don't understand what they bond over. Anyway, so he's got his hot wife. He's got his 2 children whose mother is dead, and you find that out in the fucking best way possible ever later on. And they've come into this new property, and they live with his cousin called
Cronut,
who consistently faps over his hot wife. And she's like, I'm uncomfortable. And it's like, yeah, that's totally fair.
which also is totally dropped.
Yeah.
So, like, once the action proper begins, they totally drop that he's a chronic masturbator.
I think it's let's have a disclaimer right here. There's so many things that don't come back later in the film.
Yeah.
The setup was like half an hour long for a 90-minute film. It took up a third of the film.
Yeah.
It was so long. It took so long for anything to begin happening, and so many things never came back to actually pay off.
Yeah.
So that's the setup, and then this new mansion, and we find, like, they establish that he has a safe full of money and weed, which Cronut then later raids, and then he's arguing with Cronut. But here's the big thing, like, these are all like little things that are happening in his house, which it really focuses on. But on the outside, everyone's like, have you heard about the purge happening tonight? Yeah, there's a massive purge. You got to arm yourself. And they're like, we're in Beverly Hills. We'll be fine. So they don't take it seriously. It's on the back foot. But that's like the premise of the film, and it only really comes to fruition.
It's like 45
minutes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're at the midpoint when the purge begins.
All of that is a shit family drama before that.
You can't have the premise of the movie begin 45 minutes in. Otherwise, you're just lying to the audience.
100%.
Like, if there's a Batman movie and he only starts doing Batman shit like halfway through, I want a refund.
Yeah,
like,
I want my money back.
Yeah.
I wanted a full film about Batman.
It's also very loose feeling in general. I wrote down it feels like everyone else got given a script and he didn't. I wrote down it feels like evil Uncut Gems, which is already quite...
How is anything more evil than Uncut Gems?
We found it. Well, because there's this weird, like, overlapping sense of dialogue, but it just is completely unintelligible, and there's no point to it. There's no extra stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
It actually just makes every moment really
100%.
drawn out.
I pounded back 2 glasses of wine while we were watching it, and I'd finished them by about 20 minutes into the film. And that was a huge regret, because I was slightly tipsy, but couldn't tell if it was me that was the issue or the film. And I think it was definitely a balance. It was like 90% the film, but a good 10% of it was me not being able to comprehend it. Yeah, I agree. There is this weird dialogue that's going on. So either way, the purge happens about half an hour through the film. No, halfway through the film. The purge happens, and basically all of these figures from his past come back to, like, take revenge on him for things that he's done. But you've never seen these people before.
Or heard
and every
of
time
them.
there's a huge reveal of them, you're like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
They establish that they've got 2 white neighbors that are like, oh, what are you black people doing in our very wealthy white neighborhood? You don't belong here. And you're like, okay, so they're going to come back as villains. But no one else that does come as a villain has ever been seen before.
No.
So about halfway through the film, they go through basically a series of people that want to take revenge on Carl Black and his family. So they need to survive the night in the purge. And it begins with his daughter's boyfriend, Freeze,
Mr. Freezy.
Mr. Freezy.
Mr. Freezy.
Who suddenly, after having sex with his daughter, pulls a gun out and starts firing it
No.
ad hoc.
No, you're missing the bit at which he turns to the camera and says, time for everybody to die.
That's right. He breaks the fourth wall for a second and It's nonsense.
It's the only time the fourth wall is broken, and it means nothing to us when it happens. It also, by the way, he's got like the 70s comb in the hair look, which is like, I've seen that as a look when you have like a big afro and it's like dug in and stuff.
Yeah.
Sure, cool. But he's got really, like a really tight afro.
And it's stuck in the sides that most of the comb is visible.
Yeah, you can see like the whole comb. It feels like it could slide out.
It's a strange look.
It's a really weird look.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's an important note. Let's just dwell on that for a moment longer. No, there's so many little like lapses of attention to detail. So he starts firing a gun at random in the hallway, uses all the rounds of his gun, and then his daughter kills Mr. Freeze. That's the first villain defeated. And then, again, a series of people from his past show up. The big crime boss from Chicago that he stole money from appears in his kitchen.
So that's who that was?
Yeah.
Okay.
He stole all the money and weed from the crime boss that he worked for in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then they have a bit of a scuffle, and he kills him with a coat hanger. No, a coat hook.
Coat hook. He's bashing him over the head with one of those like silver trays, and he's like backing up, and then he suddenly stops.
Yeah.
Now, like I've seen other movies use the like character gets like slammed against a coat hanger thing, so it hits you in the back of the head and kills you or whatever. I've seen that in other movies, but never with like character is walking backwards moderately slowly because they're being hit with a very light object, and that just enters their skull.
So either way, he starts going through all these enemies that show up, and they're all as ridiculous as each other. But special shout out to Mike Tyson, who made a special cameo.
Oh my god!
As a dude with these gold like knuckle dusters, and he had this like fucking bald patch on his head, and there's a bit where he bites someone's ear.
Yeah, classic.
It's the worst and best cameo of all time. And then he cycles through all of his enemies pretty steadily without having to actually do anything to overcome them. And at the end,
it's sort of like a video game boss rush.
Yeah,
it's
like you don't have to fight them off. Someone else will come in and save you.
Apparently. It's like we're skipping to the end of every level in a video game, but then the boss fight is won when you stay alive for 30 seconds.
Pretty much.
That's it.
So at the end of the film, he gets through all the enemies, and the people that are the last enemies that he has to overcome are like his evil white neighbors that were like, you don't belong in this neighborhood, which we'll get to again later. But at the end, he overcomes all the enemies. His family is safe. They survive the purge. And at the end, they all walk out heroically being like, family matters. And that's the end. That was 90 minutes of our lives that we spent watching The Black Family.
Yeah.
And I regret every goddamn minute of it.
I was just really struck by how bad it was. It's just one of those movies, like the sort of later era Wayans movies that just you watch and you're shocked this even lasted 90 pages. Like it must have been like a 40-page script.
I'm dying to read the script. I want to get my hands on that goddamn script. Also, the scene with Mike Tyson interrogating Carl Black and he's like about to beat the shit out of him with his knuckle dusters. I like lost my mind in that moment. I was like, have I detached from reality, or am I just watching this film? I don't understand the words that are like. It's like I completely forgot the English language, how it functions, how to listen to it, how to understand it.
There's like 4 people overlapping. His name is James Clown, if I remember.
And he appears looking like a clown, I believe.
He has a clown mask.
Yeah.
And then he takes it off, and he has like a bald patch, and then really long hair at the sides that he keeps like flicking out of his face.
He looks like a medieval monk.
Yeah.
You know, he's got that shaved patch on the top of his
like
head.
a really long tonsure.
Yeah, but he's still got that Mike Tyson lisp, so he's still kind of adorable. Like,
oh, and he also keeps hitting him. He's got these knuckle dusters and he's punching him, but he's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's like there's barely a reaction. So he's like getting beat the shit out of in the gut, and there's like nothing happening.
No.
It's so weird.
Yeah. And I also loved, so going back to like Mr. Freeze, right? The boyfriend of his daughter, he, like a lot of other characters apparently in this film, specifically Cronut, just can't help but masturbate to just seeing the presence of Carl Black's wife in a room. So he just glimpses his girlfriend's stepmom and he's just fapping in the shower.
Yeah.
That's a scene. That's something we had to watch.
Yeah, well, I mean, the beginning half of this movie, it's like very sexual without ever being sexy. It is entirely centered around men masturbating at the idea of women.
Yeah.
Which is the worst form of sexual I can possibly imagine.
Oh, and we forgot to bring up, so there's a character introduced in the first act and he's an African man.
Oh, God.
That's all I can say. This is what I understood. I read the synopsis and I watched the film. He's an African man that hates Carl Black, is stalking him around his premises, and when the purge happens, he wants to kill him.
So he said you got served, right? So
yeah.
That means he got served a subpoena.
Okay, yeah.
So he has to appear in court. And Carl Black reacts to that by just going, no.
What's he meant to be in court for? Is it for stealing money?
I have no idea.
Does he work for this guy's crew in Chicago? How are they all linked? They seem like they're all separate people that want different things. Like, your father has a lot of credit cards under his name, so I'm here.
Oh, there was literally a character named Visa.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm Daniel Strahan, otherwise known as Visa, which I couldn't tell if it was like a wrestling name or any sort of, like, I don't know what was happening.
It was nonsense. So this, like, African man ends up coming back. He keeps repeatedly saying that he's gonna fuck and rape Carl Black's wife.
Yeah.
There's so many things in the film that made me so uncomfortable.
Crazy to me in a movie that was clearly, this family and these writers are upset at the way white homeowners associations treat black families. A fair thing to be angry
100%.
about. It was crazy to me that same movie was so shockingly racist to the African character.
Yes, 100%.
I can't fathom how racist it was.
It was a film for black Americans. It wasn't for black people in America, you know? Like, it was like horribly sexist, horribly racist. I'm just now... I don't remember the figure offhand, but I am just going to check how much money it did make at the box office, because that is important.
And what the budget was.
Yeah, just a few facts about the film. It was made in 2016. It was directed by Dion Taylor. A notable thing about this is that I don't know anything about the people that created this film. I don't recognize that many names associated with it.
Yeah, well, it kind of reads like if someone grew up on only Tyler Perry movies and wanted to make one without any talent whatsoever.
100%. Oh, and as... you had wanted to start. Snoop Dogg does make an appearance at the beginning. That's a name that I do recognize.
But it's like white Snoop Dogg.
It's like white Snoop, but I thought it was like white female Snoop Dogg. I couldn't tell what the fuck was going on.
He had long blonde hair and he had a blonde goatee and he also looked pastier. And like, he's clearly Snoop Dogg, but then he's also putting on an accent that's like a southern accent. So he's white Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
And it wasn't also like a government message. It was just unrelated. It was like a message to the audience from white Snoop Dogg. I hated it. I hated it so much.
Also, let's just take a moment as well. There's a bit in the setup where they have the president addressing the purge, and the president is a Mexican man
George Lopez.
George Lopez, and his name is Obama.
Yes.
And he's talking about how the purge will work. It's a bit of brilliant exposition where they bend the race of a president.
Who says things like, you better watch out, Jay Leno, I'm gonna fucking get you. Like.
Also, another notable bit is when he's talking to his hot Latina wife and he says to her, "Hey, I'm Carl Black, you're Mexican Black," which is not...
Good one.
It's not your Lorena Mexican.
It's...
Either way, so the film itself was made on a budget of $900,000, which shows. And it made $9.1 million.
It made
which is
almost $10 million.
Yeah, which is why art is dead, which is why my faith is shattered by this film. We reward mediocrity because we don't want to think, which is fine, but it's also just killing everything.
You could actually buy a Beverly Hills mansion with the box office of this movie.
You wouldn't have to steal it from your drug kingpin boss in Chicago. And another cool thing, there is not many fun facts about this film to report. I think a lot of people have tried to erase the history of this film from memory. But it does have a sequel that's coming out. So according to Wikipedia, in October 2017, a sequel was confirmed to be released in February 2020 called The House Next Door, with Mike Epps reprising his role. February 2020, there has yet to be an update in the last 6 months about the status of this film.
Yeah, well, the end of it literally ends with them going to a new house on a lake, and then a character who we don't know or understand in a yellow jumpsuit just goes, the blacks are here, and then like turns and sees Jason Voorhees in a hockey mask and a green jumpsuit and goes, Jason Voorhees, I'm betting he's gonna win, and then runs away. And I don't understand.
Because
and then it says to be continued.
Yeah. And then his drug boss wakes up in the kitchen. He's like, I'm not dead.
Yeah.
And then there's a to be continued.
I guess this is meant to be a franchise in which this family goes through different horror movies and then just does that badly.
Yeah.
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 As a franchise, I hate it.
Yeah. I adored reading about the reviews of this film. Because
Yeah.
again, there's not many fun facts you can really find about Meet the Blacks. No one wants to talk about it, but they love making reviews about it. So the Truckee Sun gave the film an F, which is a strange way to grade a film, I suppose. Very high school-esque. But they wrote, given the family's chaotic and disagreeable state, we have every reason to hope they are purged along with this movie that ought to have been killed months before it reached any cinema. The reviews are astounding. They are far more entertaining than the film itself.
Also, they say the word Purge probably more than in any of the Purge movies. They constantly say it. And yet, there's a point about like 15, 20 minutes in where Carl Black, after repeatedly talking about the Purge, is like, what's going on? What's happening? And then his children are like, you know, the Purge, everything is legal for 12 hours. You haven't heard of the Purge? And I'm like, wait, does he know or does he not know?
The first person bringing it up in the film is the woman that's doing his wife's nails. The first time we meet
Yes.
Lorena, her whole arc is that she wants to be loved by his children. So naturally, the first time we meet her, she's completely self-absorbed getting her nails done. Strange decision, in my opinion. She's getting her nails done, and then the technician's like, oh, I can't stick around. It's the Purge tonight. That's the first time we hear of it, and we're probably already like... I think we're probably like about 10 or 12 minutes into it at this point.
Technically, it's the second because White Snoop Dogg, as the opening video, does talk about the Purge.
This is the first time a character mentions it to him. And she says it so casually. And I think you and I both like glanced at each other at the same moment being like, so he knows, like this is just a natural state of affairs. Like this is the world now.
He seemed to both know and not know. I couldn't tell on any level what he was knowledgeable about.
100%.
I had no idea whether or not he understood what the Purge was, what they were doing. He kept insisting that doesn't happen here, but he clearly saw everyone arming up. So I don't know why he kept insisting that. I feel like I'm trying too hard to comprehend it.
Me too. Like my brain feels mushy after watching it.
Yeah, well, like, I've watched Scary Movie 4, right? So I've watched bad horror parodies.
I'm not going to lie. I spent the whole movie being like, Scary Movie did it better.
Yeah.
Scary Movie did it better.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, this is what if a scary movie was as bad as you think it is. Because a lot of those movies are not great. But this is bad.
But in Scary Movie, you get a couple of good laughs in, you know? Like, there's a lot of bits of Scary Movie that I remember fucking howling at as a child, but I just can't imagine ever finding this film funny.
Because the difference is that they're jokes that are bad. These aren't jokes. This movie isn't filled with jokes. Like one bit that really pissed me off because it was just a pet peeve. So there's a bit, he's on the phone right in the beginning and he's talking to someone about how they're annoying him and he's like, oh, you are increasing my pissativity. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting thing. I like to make up words as part of a joke. Okay. And then the reaction is, oh man, pissativity isn't even a word. And then that's meant to be the laugh punchline.
Yeah.
You can't have a character say something that isn't real and then have another character go, that's not real as a punchline because you, the writer, are making them say the gibberish.
Exactly. It's
cheating.
A perfect example of a thing that does that joke well is Kath and Kim.
Yeah.
It's constantly full of them misremembering and misstating classic phrases or words or quotes.
Yeah.
And we've laughed at it because no one picks up on the fact that it's wrong. Mm-hmm. That's the joke.
Yeah.
They are dumb enough to say it and no one corrects them.
Yeah.
That's the funny thing about it.
The punchline has to be the thing, not them going, that's crazy that you said that, because that's nothing.
Yeah. Again, I'm so excited to try and get my hands on this script. I don't think it will probably exist on the online realm, but I would love to try and get my hands on it.
I feel like it was retro scripted. I feel like they had 6 sentences detailing every scene and they just got the actors to just make up whatever they wanted to say.
This is true.
I mean, there was that one scene, it's like the second guy he confronts, who I remember was on an episode of It's Always Sunny as a character called Landslide, because he was like playing a comedian called Landslide. And he's the big guy who farts a lot, he's also in that episode of It's Always Sunny, the big guy who farts a lot. And he just spouted complete nonsense for like 10 minutes
and then
whilst Carl Black stood there.
Then when he was shot, he farted as he died.
Yeah. And he was shot because he was shooting things And then he suddenly is shot in the head, and we find out that the box he was shooting at had a marble bust in it, which
Like an iron bust or something.
I'm trying to use my adult brain to go, maybe I guess it reflected back from the iron bust back into him. That's the closest thing I can come up with as to why it happened, because it's not made clear to the audience what exactly is going on.
Yeah, look, I'm exhausted just trying to apply logic to what we just saw. Let's just accept what we just viewed. Move past it. Grow as human beings.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
This can only make us stronger.
I mean, I definitely feel like I've gotten older, so I'll use this to try and get wiser.
I definitely feel like I know how to be prepared for the purge when it happens.
Yeah.
Which is to ignore it happening, move to a mansion in Beverly Hills, still state that I'll be perfectly safe after stealing a bunch of money from my crime boss. And in the end, he's kind of the guy that gets me killed anyway.
Well, I mean, a lot of their strategy was to just stand in the stairwell.
I love standing in stairwells. I can do that.
Initially, it was stand upstairs, but then that didn't work. So they just stood in the stairwell for quite some time.
Love that. I'll do that.
That was the whole strategy.
Love that. And you've got like a natural step behind you as well. Stairwell drinks, stairwell party. We don't have a stairwell, but...
If we make stairs, I think we'll live more in the Purge.
You reckon? Or just live more in general?
I think if we make stairs, we'll just live longer. I mean, if you do a study, okay, scratch this. We're not doing the podcast. What we're going to do is we're going to do a study of people who live past the age of 90 and calculate how many stairs they have per person.
Brilliant. I think that's a way more feasible option for this podcast going forwards.
Yeah.
Just to be honest, can we do 248 more of these?
So what's your rating of it? What's your version of it?
My rating out of 10, would obviously be far lower than a 4.8. That seems strangely high for how particular IMDb can be. I would give it a proper 2.8.
2.8? Well, because I thought like the sound design was batshit, but it was a bold choice, and I'll give it that.
Are you trying to find the positive in it?
I'm trying to find the positive.
Yeah, I think it has some really interesting statements about being like racially profiled and stereotyped in a community.
Also, one thing I did enjoy, even though it wasn't funny, was how like, there's the beginning where there's the guy in the red mask who's like the head white supremacist of the homeowners association.
Yeah.
And he's like knocking on the door saying that he's Trump and that he's gonna kill them and that saying a bunch of hardcore racist shit.
Yeah.
And then he says the N-word and everyone's like, whoa, and then he apologizes for it. And I'm like, that's kind of funny on how white people think about race. They're like, oh, it's bad to say the N-word, but I can still be racist. I was like, there's some little bits in there. He also later is like, I watched Django. It was fucked up what they did, but I'm still going to kill you. I was like, it's not funny or a full coherent statement, but it's like a third of one.
The intent was there.
I could tell what the intent was, and I liked the intention. So I'll give it a 2.
Wow. Now I'm feeling generous with my 2.8. Am I a fucking idiot? Should I go lower?
Well, remember that the floor of this goes down to like Manos' Hands of Fate and The Room and stuff. Like that's a 0. So I'm giving it 2 points.
You think The Room is a 0?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in 170 episodes, all right? When we get to it.
We'll get there.
All right. No, I changed my vote to a 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah, 2.8 was just a bit too generous for me. I think 2.5. I'm like, would I give it a 1 out of 4 stars? Yes. Yes, I would.
Yeah.
It still exists as a movie.
If I was Roger Ebert, I'd give it 1 out of 4 stars.
I could be Roger Ebert. We share a birthday. So for me, I'm like, am I a genius with film? Am I? Do you think I am?
I think we've got 248 episodes to find out.
Yeah, let's do it. I think we'll definitely have changed as people when we get to the end of that list. Let's say that.
Just by the nature of time.
We, like the cliffs by a sea, will be eroded.
I was about to say like the cliffs of Dover, but they're pretty much how they are.
I was about to very confidently say that they definitely also get eroded, but I'm not sure about that because they're made notably out of chalk, like the white chalk.
Yeah.
So I don't know how chalk works.
I don't know how the cliffs of Dover works.
Let's just chalk it up to ill information.
That was some good podcasting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So last week we realized that we kind of rushed through the whole thing. We're still trying to find our feet with the podcast.
Yeah.
And we kind of jumped in and jumped out really quickly. But, how was your week?
It's the weirdest segue I can think of. Well, it was better than last week.
Yeah, we're in week 2 of lockdown in Melbourne.
Yeah, I actually had some work come through as well. So that's been nice.
That's great.
It's been nice feeling a little better emotionally than just like the few days after the second lockdown was announced.
Humble brag, all right.
It's
Whatever.
It's not meant to be.
All right.
Um,
I'm emotionally adjusted now. I'm not crying all the time. I'm sorry, keep going.
yeah, I mean the nature of lockdown means I don't have much to do. Although I have started like a new project. Like I was saying to Brooke, I want to like put a Raspberry Pi computer inside of a
to me as
PS1
well.
case. Yeah, I need to learn how to do that, but I don't know. I got like 4 or 5 weeks to figure it out.
Projects are good. Projects help keep you sane in these terrible and testing times. I have a new project which I brainstormed when I was very fucked on a tab, which is that I'm going to make a cat run from our bathroom window into the garden, and I have to build a cabinet to do it, and I have to make a little hutch for the cats to hang out in the garden,
which we called a greenhouse for a long time.
Greenhouse is cooler than a hutch because my cats are not rabbits.
Yeah, but it is more hutch-like than it is greenhouse.
Definitely so.
Yeah.
Yes, there will be no glass present.
Yeah.
It'll be a net house, really, more than anything. But that's my project that's keeping me sane. So, but as you say, like for the first week of lockdown, I was an absolute emotional wreck, but now I'm less of an emotional wreck.
See?
So
that's a trajectory of up.
Yeah. But yeah, so projects are good. Watching bad movies has been
not good.
Not good.
I've been notably a fan of bad movies for quite some time, and I'm really shocked at how bad these are. We're 2 in, and I've gravely underestimated our task.
We keep saying that like it's only going to get worse, but will it actually get better? Because we're stuck in the mediocre realm at the moment, and as we get steadily worse, will it be more and more enjoyable, or will it be harder to digest?
No. Like Wild Wild West is mediocre, right? Ultraviolet is fun bad. I know, but I'm saying like that's mediocre. This is well below mediocre. This is bad. This is the bottom 250.
I don't think this is a film that would make it into the bad movie night, you know?
Well, but that's also because it's not fun.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. I mean,
we had to scream at each other to pull our energy up tonight because we were just so bummed out by how bad that was.
Yeah, a comedy shouldn't leave me feeling sad. I laughed more at Nothing to Lose than I did at this.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, I'm just... it's just now weighing upon me that for 5 years, every week, I will have to watch a movie of this quality or worse. And I just...
Yeah, how are you feeling about committing to this for 5 years?
I don't know. At first it seemed okay, but now I'm not so keen on it.
At first I was like, great, a project to cheer us up for lockdown. But now I'm like, will it do the opposite? Will it destroy our will to live?
I definitely say this is the worst part of my day.
Oh! Wow. Great. Well, that's us for the week, guys. Yeah, so join us next week for...
Yeah, join us next week for God's Not Dead from 2014. I'm so excited. Yeah!